Good evening. Thank you for joining us. We will call to order a regular meeting of the Fargo Board of Education. It is Tuesday, January 10th, and we will ask you to join us in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and I'll look for approval of the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda in front of us with the inclusion of the HR addendum also in front of us.
I'll second it.
Okay, moved by Greg, seconded by Namal. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. We'll move on to the recognition of audience portion. At this time, the board will hear comments from the public. We ask that each speaker who has signed up to address the board state their name and home school district for the record. Speakers must refrain from using this forum to criticize or complain about a specific employee or student by name. Vulgar or profane language will not be tolerated. The board is interested in your comments and will listen carefully, but is not obligated to respond to or debate issues in this forum. This evening, each speaker will be allotted a maximum of 5 minutes. Upon conclusion of the allotted time, a chime will sound and the speaker is asked to conclude. If necessary, a final chime will sound 15 seconds later, signifying the end of the speaker's time at the podium. I will now call our first speaker to the podium, which is Devin Stachinski.
I got a lot. Devin Stachinski, Horseman. Here we go. Well, it's been an absolute whirlwind since the last school board meeting. I've learned a lot, even in the last day. So, no more written response. I would, since you have us put it down on the sheet, I would like to request a telephone response to my questions. But first, allow me to quote Jim Shaw in the Fargo Forum, which you guys must have fallen quite far from grace to have him coming at you. He has teachers coming to him saying that the students are disrespectful, swearing at teachers, name-calling the teachers, fighting each other every day. I have parents telling me that there are groups of students at South and North having intercourse in the bathrooms and the libraries, but that's not what Jim is talking about here. He also says that another teacher approached him and says, and I quote, "I wish I could publicly comment, but cannot, as I would be terminated for speaking negatively about Fargo schools." Now, Jim goes on to say a lot of things in here. A lot of them were platform positions for certain members of the public running for school board. So 7 months late, but fantastic. Jim Shaw suggests that Fargo school district leaders need to publicly acknowledge the issues going on in the schools. Second, there needs to be tougher consequences for what's going on. Third, adopt a dress code, which there was only one person advocating for that on the campaign trail. Fourth, no cell phones. Fifth, drop proficiency grading for the grading system because it's not actually helping the students attain anything. So, rather interesting to see him come out with these. Now, some of my other questions I have. In Memo 75, you state that you're going to be purchasing the south property for just over $8 million. Now I'm confused. If you've already approved the land swap for the south and the north parcels, did you not already own the south parcel to be swapping, in which case that begs a question. Does this memo 75 ask to pay another $8 million to secure the south unit, so then you can trade it for the north unit, which then you have to pay another $6.5 million for the difference? And then in memo 76, when you're asking for $18 million for a bond, I have several questions about that. Wouldn't a bond measure of that size require going on the ballot, as ballot measures are supposed to do, if they're greater than X amount of mills, which I'm pretty sure $18 million is greater than the allotted mills. But I don't know. I'm not a property tax lawyer for the state, so I don't know what the restriction is. So then that begs the question, is this bond measure for this $8 million plus the 6.5 totaling just shy of $15 million? And then what are you going to do with the other 3 million and change? That's all.
Thank you for joining us. Our next speaker signed up is Victoria Johnson.
Madam President, a member of the board, my name is Victoria Johnson. I'm here to put two requests, and I hope that you will take it into consideration. My first request is for the board and the district to consider giving parents and other members of the community to be able to address the elected official using the VI virtual, I should say that. The city commission does that. If parents cannot make it there or community cannot make it there, they can call in and address the elected official. And so I hope that you can take that in consideration, because not the time of when you're hosting this, it does not work with everybody else's schedule. There are parents who have kids, after school programs and everything like that. So giving them that opportunity will be great. My second request that I hope you'll take into consideration is also the data. I think it's time for this board and the district to present a data, how things are going. One of the biggest reason why setting D was built is because the concern was that we have a behavior issue, staff safety, and etc. And so setting D was built to help with some of those students with challenging behaviors that is directly related to their disability. And so we need to look at those data. And you need to ask the question of how many of those students who are placed in setting D has been transitioned back into the school setting, because that goal was to have this building to help those kids build the legging skills and know how to maintain and regulate themselves into the regular school settings. So there was a reasoning to why that building was built. And so how many of the students are there, and how many of those students has been transitioned back into the school with non-disabled students? Because right now they're serving only students with disability in that building. So that's a question you board needs to ask, and I think it's time for the school board to this district to present this board with some data and ask questions about restraint and seclusion, and also staff injury. How's the data looking like? Because that was one of the biggest issues, was that staff was getting injured by those kids. Was that correct or was that incorrect? Was it just to build that building, or what's going on? I think it's time for the public and for you board members to look at those numbers, and also look at the data for suspension. How's that going? Because we had a really bad data there with the in-school and outside school suspension, the racial disparity. School to prison pipeline was one of the biggest issue. So how's those data looking like? Is UKIRA still helping? You know what I mean? Because one of the things that the district implement the use of UKIRA, and that's supposed to help. So is it effective? Can you be able to compare the data prior to UKIRA was implemented to now? So I just think it's time for this board to ask some of those questions to the district and have the district come out here and show you the data and break it down and explain prior data to the current data. So I hope you'll take that into consideration and ask for those information so we, the public, can see it and you guys can see it, and then ask yourself, was it worth to build a over $12 million building? That house, I believe, was at that time, it was only 10, and I don't know if the number increased or not. And so how's that going? Was that a smart investment, or was it a poor investment? It's a question we need to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. We will move on to our staff report section of the agenda. We're starting tonight with the FPS Development Foundation report being presented by Becky Bakke. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much for having me. I think you received some packets, so you have a lot of information in there. I'm going to touch briefly just on a few points out of that packet. We'll talk about what happened last school year, 2021-22, and what we've been up to with the FPS Alumni Network. The first thing I'll talk about is innovative education and literacy grants. Twice in 21-22, we did 2 grant rounds for that, and these funds are set aside through endowments and annual donations to give educators a chance to pilot a new idea or supplement something they're already doing in the classroom. And we gave out 17 innovative education grants for a total of $19,169. This current school year, we've changed innovative education to a one-time grant round, and we just received, the deadline for that was January 6th, and we received 19 grant submissions totaling $30,000, and they'll be being reviewed this month and then announced in February. The other major grant funding opportunity we do every year is the Eleanor Lang Law Literacy Grants. They support innovative literacy and library projects. Last year, we funded 5 projects, and they were totaling $26,969. Those applications are due May 31st every year and are utilized the following school year. So we'll have those coming up again for the 23-24 school year. One of the major programs that you're aware of that we fund is the Critical Needs Program. This includes, the purpose for this program is so that any student in the school district who needs help receives help and support for any critical needs that they may have. The program supports all students in all 23 buildings and 5 programs, as well as 4 high school, 3 middle school pantries, and the Husky Hutch, which supports the elementary student families. Annually, we survey school building staff about how many students and families were served. During the last school year, we served an estimated 5,651 students or families. And a more breakdown of that would be the high school hybrid pantries served just over 15,000 or 1,571 students. Liz's Closet, which is the middle school pantry, served 1,060 students. The Husky Hutch served 2,015 families. There were 720 students or families served through additional programming, and that would include the homeless program, programs like that. We also served over 285 plus students through the Milk and Elementary Snack Program. We also support emergency lunch. As you know, the last 2 years, we didn't have to worry about paying for student lunch, but this upcoming school year, we will. We're constantly raising funds for that. Hopefully we'll have enough to help cover all that as we come to the end of the school year. One way we do that is, here's my annual Giving Hearts Day plug. We participate in Giving Hearts Day. This year's no exception. Giving Hearts Day is that all-day fundraiser. It's on February 9th this year, and it supports the Critical Needs Program. It gives, we raise money all year round for the Critical Needs Program, but this gives us a good opportunity to give it a big boost as we head into the rest of the school year and into the next school year. I'd for sure would really like to thank, we have some match partners this year, the Fargo Family Foundation, Nodak Insurance, and Drecker Brewing. Our match partners challenge donors to make an even bigger impact for students in need. So we're really happy to have them. You may hear about some more as we get closer to Giving Hearts Day. The final project we do are programs that we run are scholarships every year. We hold several permanently endowed scholarship funds for all 4 high schools, as well as annual scholarships and awards for Fargo Public School students. We also administer the Fargo Area Dollars for Scholars program, which distributes scholarships to Fargo area graduating seniors. In 2022, we administered and awarded 132 scholarships totaling just over $113,000. So that continues to grow year to year. So I think scholarships, not only the monetary value for students, but giving them that sense that we believe that they're going to move on and do bigger and better things. We're going to help them along the way. Finally, the alumni network. We have been diligent in working to expand our outreach with alumni and setting up new contacts. We're working with a company called Alumni Nations to help increase that outreach. And we're developing a new site where FPS alumni can go and, excuse me, sign up and connect with each other and find out what the happenings of Fargo Public Schools are. The site is up and development's in progress. You can check that out at fargoalumni.alumniinstitute.com. It's a lot of words. We're gonna try to shorten that up. In your packet, you had a kind of summary of that survey that was sent out. Some of probably the three biggest things that we pulled out of it were that there were 875 respondents, which is pretty high. We sent it out to, I think we have 14,000. But the folks that helped us with the survey said that's probably, excuse me, one of the highest return rates they've had on a survey. So we were happy about that. Alumni were most interested in keeping in touch with each other and classmates and using the online directory and events to connect. They indicated that the #1 factor that formed alumni opinions of Fargo Public Schools was for students to be college and career ready, followed by the accomplishments of students and a complement of teachers and staff. They also commented that the high quality of education, teachers, and extracurricular activities were most used to describe why alumni are proud of Fargo Public Schools. So you'll see a lot of other information in there of what they're looking for from us so they can connect and be proud of the education they receive from Fargo Public Schools. So that's it in a nutshell. Any questions? I always say this every year, but we're able to help families and children so efficiently because of the support from Fargo Public Schools. It helps us, Jackie's team helps us get funds to where they need to go so that students and families get those extra supports that they need. So we're grateful for that, so thank you. Any questions?
That's wonderful. Thank you. Any questions or comments from board members? Robin?
Thank you, Becky, for your work.
Yeah.
You have elevated the foundation tremendously since you've been the executive director, and I know you don't do that alone, so please
No.
pass my thanks along to Corey as well.
I should have pointed out, and I'm sure Tara will remind me, that Corey really does the alumni network.
There you go.
I'm here to talk about it, but it's her hard work that's going into that, so.
Yeah. You guys do wonderful work with outreach in the community as well, so thank you as a community partner. You do.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I would second that. Any other questions, comments? Yes, Katie?
I would also just say thank you. I think your critical needs update really kind of struck me, that it's amazing that you can provide that support for those critical needs, and it also just shows a reflection of maybe the needs of our community are even bigger than what this can. I mean, if that many people are reaching out, those many kids and families, it's really just telling us that there are people in this community that need support.
The more touch points we can get to those families, the more they'll succeed in school, so.
Yeah, so thank you very much for doing the work and for providing this update to us.
Thank you.
Dr. Gandhi?
Yeah, I think I just wanted to echo the relationship. Fargo Public Schools couldn't do a lot of our work without the foundation, and they've been instrumental for many different supports, not just for our families, but for our teachers, and they do a wonderful job of also making sure that any grants that they do offer are incorporated into our systems. As a board member, I will advocate for Becky whenever she makes the Giving Hearts plug as well. Our foundation probably runs on a lower admin cost, much to the chagrin of the auditors. So when we do offer Giving Hearts Day and different funds to give it to them, I would always encourage unrestricted funds as well, so they're able to do their work. But they expand their resources more than anyone else, and our students and teachers are better for it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here. We
Thank you.
appreciate the report, Becky. Next on our agenda, we will discuss the FPS contracted services to Prairie St. John's. This comes to us in memo number 68. And I will turn to Dr. Gandhi.
Thank you. I believe we've had the conversation, or at least board members have been privy to conversations around what this memo is entailing, but today was the first official time that we had an opportunity to share more information and then also get feedback from the board as well regarding an administrative decision to discontinue educational services at Prairie St. John effective the end of this school year. As I look back on the memo that has written as is and just some of the questions that have been risen since then, I do think that I could have probably done a better job of writing or clarity in the explanation of educational services. Use that term in the memo because that's how Prairie St. John's contracted the services. And I think the memo as written makes it seem like when we discontinue our practice of providing Prairie St. John's educational services, it implies that educational services are going to stop for all of the students. The current model that Fargo Public Schools has had in place with Prairie St. John's, they contract us for what they call educational services, but that is not the sole educational service for the student. The education opportunities that students receive are always a responsibility of the district. So students that are at Prairie St. John's, what happens is that if a student goes there from any school district, that school district continues to provide their education, but the model up to this point has been if the providing district or the home district of that student pays the tuition to Fargo Public Schools, our social workers and our teachers that are located at Prairie St. John's will then engage with that home school district to provide that student's education. So what that means is that they're emailing back and forth to get the work. That means sometimes some school districts will say, we don't want that service. We'll just communicate with the schools differently or with the family differently to get them their work. Sometimes we don't get the work from the teacher. So then what we do is we just provide supplemental instruction using a program called IXL, which is for language arts and math. It's just a program online. So when the memo implies that education is going to stop, that's actually not the case. What has changed over time is many different things. First and foremost, we have needs far beyond Prairie St. John's for which we already provide educational services to students, specifically homebound services or any other remote learning opportunities as well. We have students that are receiving acute or long-term care in other facilities or treatment centers that we would also work with individually, regardless of whether this option at Prairie St. John was there or not, to provide education. So with the flexibility that we've been given over the past couple of years, with virtual instruction, with the demand that we have for social workers, special education teachers, and the services that the staff that we have placed there as well, we think it's better to concentrate our resources on meeting our own needs. I think there's no secret to the labor shortage and the ability for us to be able to meet the needs across our system. That is nothing indicative of the services that Prairie St. John's provide. They provide a great set of services. It's just that the current model, which predated the ability to provide virtual instruction, predated a time where we needed our own staff to be able to focus on the instruction that we have, is no longer the best model because we do believe that as a school district and every school district that sends students to Prairie St. John's, they're going to have to continue providing education no different than they would for any other student. It's important to know that when students, at least from Fargo, go to Prairie St. John's, they don't withdraw from our school and then receive education there. It's not a school. They stay on our attendance roll. They stay on our grade book. So the assignments should be locally controlled, and we now have the ability to do that more directly with the teacher versus having to have someone else coordinate getting that work, because we're also at a point where most of our students have devices, they have access to their emails and different things of that nature as well. So that's really what this memo is covering, reallocating those staffs to provide our education versus the facilitation of education services for each school district on a tuition model at Prairie St. John's.
Excellent, thank you for that. Any questions from board members? Greg?
So, we're still gonna have Fargo Public Schools students there. Right, looks like, we had 177 there, 2022. you know, those numbers aren't gonna, disappear. And I think if I followed correctly, we're expecting to still be able to educate those students, but it'll be through not the current teachers who are contracted and working at Prairie St. John, but it will be through our existing classroom teachers who are going to then need to coordinate that care without the assistance of any staff at Prairie St. John. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I would say that even in the current model, they're still being educated through the classroom teacher. It's just the staff that we have at Prairie St. John's, they're responsible for working with the home district to get the work. So, my response is going to be, it'll be no different than on a case-by-case basis that we do for any student that has an extended absence, whether a student is at Prairie or whether they're at another treatment facility. We would then make a determination of if we're going to continue their education through homebound services, if we're going to continue their education through another means. We continue to bear that responsibility and provide the resources accordingly.
I guess the I guess broader point I was trying to make is so I understand that our current non-Prairie St. John educators are currently involved and would remain involved, but the presumably the staff we have at Prairie St. John currently do something for our FPS students. And so I'm wondering what fills that gap.
Yeah, so what they do is they coordinate the services for our students and any other students from the other districts from whom we receive a tuition at Prairie St. John's. The staff, based on their qualifications and their area of needs, will get plugged into our system. But I would assume, and don't want to make a general assumption here, but now that we know that we're going to have to do that coordination for just our students as well, that resources will then also come back to us. So let's say that we're no longer going to have a set of individuals at Prairie St. John's doing it, but we're going to use the homebound instruction model where we're going to have to be homebound instruction at some point as well. But now we'll only be focused on the students within the Fargo Public Schools versus having that obligation to the other districts from whom we're receiving a tuition.
Okay, yeah, I think that answers my question. So instead of 6 or 7 FTEs, we'll still have to have some amount of increased labor on our end to assist with that service. I get the main point I was trying to get at was that it's not just going to be a further burden to all of our current educators.
Not at all. And in fact, I would say that probably the value of work that our staff are doing, and I don't mean this in any diminished way, but I think when we just look at resources and time and energy and to coordinate with every other school district is probably beyond even what the tuition rate is. And this is not just about the money, but it's about protecting our staff and energy and focusing on our core mission of educating our students and making sure every school district can do what they need to do as well. And I would assume that they're going to have to figure out the best way to continue education for their students with the tuition offset that they get too. But times have also changed. There's flexibility in how you can provide instruction, and we've had to utilize those flexibilities specifically around remote instruction more over the last couple of years specifically.
Does anyone else want to ask a question? I don't want to dominate. I do have one more, but
You can go ahead and then I can go next. You can continue with yours.
I think Robin wanted to jump in.
Oh, I do too, but you said you had one more, that's why.
All right, I'll go ahead with mine. So do we have a sense of what Prairie St. John has plans as far to fill the vacuum that presumably our wonderful educators employed by FPS will leave a hole for Prairie St. John to fill. They're not, it's us ending the contract. It's not them saying they don't see value in what we do anymore. So presumably they think there is some need that will then still need to be met. Do we, I understand it's not necessarily our problem, but it is a community resource that that Prairie St. John provides, and I just want to understand if we have an idea of are we really leaving them hanging or not.
Great question. I don't specifically have the answer to what they they have planned. I know that we've started the conversations with them. We'll send, after this discussion, we would send them official notice as well. I will defer to Missy, who's been involved with the programming there, if she's heard. But I do want to just also point out that in the memo, we very consciously wrote discontinuing the current educational model of services as is, because if they decide, hey, you guys have the ability to provide virtual instruction, or there's something different that they want to look to, that doesn't, we're here to serve kids, and we want to make sure that we're serving all of the students that are served at Prairie St. John's with the same high expectations that their districts expect of them, and we expect of Fargo Public School students. So we're open to those conversations. We're open to looking at a different model that may work as well. It was just the current model in the staffing and resources as expected was probably not the best bet for both, or at least for our entity, as we move forward and look at our needs.
I can just add that I have met multiple times since September with Prairie St. John's. One thing they did ask as we were talking through this is if we were going to make a decision, make it sooner than later. And that they'd ask that we would continue to partner with them as they are going to look at the models like the Dakota Boys and Girls Ranch, because they moved to their own. We have other organizations who also have hired their own teachers, and they just said, since we understand the DPI system, if we would be of assistance, and we said we would, as they look at that model.
Thank you for that. Robin, did you have a question?
I guess I would say, as an employer, these are FPS employees that are providing services to students that are outside our district. And if we are short-staffed, wouldn't it make sense to pull back our resources to our obligation of serving our own students? And I don't want that to sound as a selfish piece, but we are administering a program for multiple districts. And if we're limited, it makes sense to pull it back. Is it a change in the delivery? Correct. But all the students will still be served, but only by their own districts. And that makes sense to me from a business and a fiscal standpoint, and accountability to our taxpayers. Is it fun to make changes? Absolutely not. But I do think it makes sense for the district.
Thank you. Nimal?
Well, I have a big concern on it, especially when we have so many students from all different backgrounds, from social economic, from lower income, so much. As you can see, there is this would be a big cutback in our districts, especially like losing Prairie St. John for those students who are going there. And then also to just looking at it, 578 students that were served last year, it is great, and I'm really honored that they are doing this kind of work into our school districts and so many more. But for me, it's more just looking into it. Just mental health overall in the state of North Dakota is a big concern, and if we cut back on other resources that can really help us, it's going to be another bigger hurdles toward the staff, toward the teacher, toward everybody. And then plus looking at it too, we already have so much that the teacher are dealing with, from everything that we just saw on the news and so many more. It is a big concern to me. And I know that that's one of the reasons why we're asking you all these questions, is because we want to know exactly where we are heading. Because if these students are going to have a tough time in the classroom with their homework, with everything that they're going through in life, and just in our districts, and we don't have a lot of providers that really have that certification of being a provider in the district, and we don't have that at all. you know, that's really is a big, I'm going to have a big, it's going to be tough for me. I know. Thank you.
No, thank you. I wholeheartedly agree with everything you've said. I don't think, so no part of this conversation, we have I think I wrote in the memo as well, we have a great relationship with Prairie St. John's. They are a fantastic program and a much needed program for some of our most vulnerable students. And our community is so much better for them. This has nothing to do with them, their organization, the set of services, or Fargo Public Schools' desirability to continue a very strong partnership and utilizing their services as well. This has to do with meeting an educational standard that we have for our current students as well. Within the current model, every year we have a certain amount of staff that are obligated there. We get a certain tuition from each school to then coordinate education back with those students. Certain districts can choose not to take advantage of that opportunity. And then the students would just receive like maybe supplemental instruction from our staff or what the case might be. There might be some times where teachers or districts are unresponsive, even though you're coordinating that work. We actually think that the quality of education will be more consistent and meet the standards each district has for their students if the resources are kind of channeled that way as well. So no part of this is to discontinue or diminish either the services provided by Prairie St. John's as a treatment center or the district's ability to educate their students. It's the current model that we've been utilizing to this point where FPS was contracted as essentially staff to facilitate the education from our own district and other districts is probably not the best way to move forward in our opinion. I equate this very similar to the decision during very similar labor shortages over the past couple of years coming off of the pandemic, our nutrition service department, because of how we wanted to spend the time, energy, and the labor market that we had around delivery and our nutrition services to stop catering. Some of those catering orders were for within our district, and then even externally, we realized that our time, energy, and resources were best on making sure that we could provide the meals that we needed to with the staff that we had, because that's the best way to go about it. That doesn't mean that there aren't other catering options available, but we have to focus on our core mission as an organization first when you're looking at your resources and you're looking at a labor shortage. And that's the same analogy that I would use in this situation. It's by no means to diminish the partnership that we'll continue to have with Prairie St. John's or the education or mental health services that our students deserve and will continue to get.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just make a comment that, first of all, I view this as a purely administrative decision. I don't believe the board is taking action on this tonight, so I appreciate you informing us of this. And the way I see this, we are talking about 3 of our Fargo Public Schools teachers, 2 social workers, 1.75 paras, not to mention some of the admin, secretary, and accounting services. And if I'm understanding correctly, 14% of the students served, right, at Prairie St. John's were from Fargo Public Schools. So that's not adding up to me. And I respect administration catching this. And I sort of echoes Robin's comments that this is what we need to do to serve our own district. Any other board members have questions or, yes, Craig?
I'll make one last comment. So I agree. I think this is something that falls on administration. And the last thing I'll say is I'm with Nimal that this seems like it could be something concerning. And I greatly appreciate Missy and Rupak, assuring us that, Prairie St. John, we believe they're going to be fine. We're still going to have a relationship with them. We're not like setting them up to fail or setting our students up to fail or community students up to fail. And so what I would say is, I would appreciate if we could get updates to when anything does happen to hear, to, I guess, oversight to make sure that that is happening. And I think this does fall pretty squarely within our strategic initiative number 4 regarding community outreach and communication. So I think it is quite important. So I would appreciate more information as we get it over time.
Missy, do you plan to continue meeting with them, or?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, thank you, guys. Next was going to be the FEA report. Kim Regan indicated to me she will not be able to make it. I don't believe I see anyone else from FEA. So we will move on to Superintendent report. Dr. Gandhi.
Yeah, I'll just speak on behalf of them to the level that I can as well. Robin and I had a chance to meet with the FEA Executive Board just to share where we stand as a district on legislative priorities. We covered mainly the 2 legislative priorities that we have outlined in our document from the Governmental Affairs Committee, but we were also able to share some legislative positions and things that we're looking at, both from my lens as a administrator for the district and or part of NDCL's group, and then Robin was able to share some from the school board perspective as well. So I'm sure she'll provide some more during her update, but that was really grateful to collaborate with FEA and be able to share some of the things that we can advocate together on moving into this legislative session. Outside of that, I think we're not going to have school next week. We are ending our first semester in Fargo Public Schools here shortly as well. So just really excited to kick off the next school year and move forward. So.
Rupak, you just said we're not going to have school next week. Do you want to clarify what you just said?
Monday. Next week, Monday.
There's a lot of happy kids right
Next
now.
week, Monday.
Okay, all right. Excellent.
Next week, Monday.
Okay, any questions on the superintendent report? Excellent. I will look for approval of the consent agenda. Robin,
I move approval of the consent agenda with the HR addendum that was at each of our spots.
thank you. Seconded by Namal. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Oh, hi, thank you, Seth. Okay, motion passes, thank you. I think we're good just to move on to our business section. So up first tonight, we have the 2021-2022 audit report. This is memo number 74 at your desks. So a copy of the audited annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year ending in June 30th, 2022 is attached. Fargo Public Schools has received an opinion that our financial statements have been presented fairly and in conformity with general accepted accounting principles. So our undesignated fund balance is one of the best measures of overall financial health. And at the close of this last fiscal year, the district's governmental funds reported combined ending fund balances of $62,146,283, which was an increase of $10,526,041 in comparison with our prior year. And then approximately 58.9% of that is available for spending through an unassigned fund balance. So, Robin.
I would like to make a motion to accept and file the annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022, and forward copies to the appropriate agencies as requested.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Okay, seconded by Namal. Any discussion or questions? Jackie?
We do have a representative from Ide Bailey here to present some information for you all regarding this board memo.
Well, I wouldn't have said all of that.
Yeah, no, that's,
They can say it better.
you did an excellent job. So if I may, introduce Derek Flanagan, who is here. He's a partner with Ide Bailey. This year, Ide Bailey did our audit. It was the first year for them. And so with that, as well as a number of new board members, we thought it would be a good idea for them to give us, or provide you, a brief overview of what they found during our audit.
We appreciate that. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thanks for having me And like Jackie said, my name is Derek Flanagan with Eid Bailey, here to present on the June 30, 2022 audit. It looks like we're maybe having some tech trouble here, but I'll just go through it. Are you guys able to see it in front of you? No? Okay. Well, you're just gonna have to bear with me and I'll be as descriptive as I possibly can. I have a PowerPoint, but we'll just improvise here a little bit and walk through it. And so if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. You can interrupt me if you want, or you can wait till the end. I'm okay with questions at any point during this presentation. So you have hired us to come in and perform a financial statement audit. The financial statements, or the ACFR is the acronym for those financial statements, are yours. It is our responsibility as the auditors to express an opinion on the ACFR and those financial statements. And thank you, just in the nick of time. You know, and I was gonna say, if you guys just wanna approve it, and you know, I can take off if you want. I am an accountant, I'm just looking at my shoes here for the presentation, so. No, but we provide an audit opinion. And the opinion you received is an unmodified opinion. That is a clean, in layman's terms, that is a clean audit opinion. And what that means is that your financial statements are in accordance with standards. In our opinion, they are free of material misstatements and that they are fairly presented. And so we go through a lot of time and effort going through a lot of information and those sorts of things, but the end product is that we provide you this opinion. You also had a separate audit of your federal awards. This is a little bit different. Now, when we do your financial statement audit, it very much is focused on the disclosures and the financial statement figures. The federal audit has some testing that focuses on compliance with grant provisions and things of that nature. But the overall premise is the same, that we do express an opinion at the conclusion of that audit of federal awards. And so a little bit of background, anytime a governmental agency does spend over $750,000, that's what triggers it in any given fiscal year. You are well over that. You have consistently been over that threshold. So it's a yearly requirement that you guys have to go through. And I'm happy to report that the two major programs that we tested in the current year received an unmodified opinion on compliance for those major federal award programs. So the same premise, a clean, unmodified opinion related to the federal audit as well. Did want to report back any findings that we alerted you to within the financial statements in the current year. First off, on the financial statement side of things, one finding that was just that we proposed some material journal entries as part of the audit process, including a restatement. And so as part of that, we have to evaluate that and include it as a finding within the financial statements. And then one finding related to the federal awards program, and that was just that we did identify within contracts that didn't have prevailing wage rate information included, and they did not ensure certified payrolls were being submitted in a timely fashion. And so when we were evaluating the compliance on that grant agreement, we did note that, and so we report that back here as a finding related to the federal awards. So some financial information that comes directly from your ACFR, which is the acronym for your financial statements. And bear with me here, there's a lot of information on this slide, and it's probably pretty small in front of you, but I think the importance with this one is just with the budget to actual, it really highlights where your actual results came in compared to what you had anticipated with your final budget. So as you're looking at this, I typically will look at that variance column because that just kind of shows you, hey, here's where we ended up compared to what we had set as our final budget. And so you can see that your revenues were slightly below budget, 2.7% variance. And your expenditures were also below budget, which is a good thing. You did not spend as much as you had anticipated with your final budget, and that was a 1.9% variance. Overall, the very bottom of the slide there, you see your ending fund balance is kind of that, in the third column, that last figure, $37,278,461. And this just goes through what caused the changes from the prior year to the current year within that general fund. And I do have a couple slides that will give you some additional information on the actual fund balance figure. So a lot of information, but I think it's helpful for you to see where you ended up compared to your final budget. This next slide, just a little bit on why you want to carry a positive fund balance. It does help when you do go out for bonding and in terms of your rating. It provides income to the extent it's invested, and then it also just offers that cushion for when unexpected items do come up. We all know that you can set a budget and you can plan as best as you want to, but inevitably some things that you don't plan for do come up. So it offers that cushion for when that occurs. Within your general fund, the large portion of the dollars within that general fund are unassigned. You do have some non-spendable amounts, but this graph just shows you the last 5 years of in total for the line, and then just the makeup between non-spendable amounts and unassigned for that fund balance. The bulk of kind of what we're looking at with this fund balance is what we do is we take a percentage. So we take your unassigned fund balance and divide it by the amount of expenditures for any given year, for that pertinent year that we're looking at, and to come up with a percentage. And that's on the next slide, but before I get there, I just wanted to point out a couple of things. One is the GFOA, which is a national organization but focuses on governmental accounting. And keep in mind that it pertains to schools, counties, cities, so all governments. It's not just focused on schools. So take it with a grain of salt. It's kind of an overarching little guide that they published, but they said their recommendation was to maintain no less than 2 months, or in a percentage term, that's 16.6%. You guys do have your own fund balance policy, which is to maintain 15%. And so that would equate to an unassigned fund balance of 28 million. So as of year end, on the next slide then, this is where you came out. So you're at 19.6% at the end of 2022. And then we do have some historical information there, so you can kind of see the trend analysis over 5 years in terms of where that fund balance is at as a percent of expenditures within the general fund. The maroon line is just kind of demonstrating for you where the fund balance policy that you guys have enacted is at compared to actual results. Your fund balance did go up in the current year. However, your expenditures increased at a higher rate than the fund balance. Therefore, this percentage declined. But you can see pretty consistently between 19 and 21% over a 5-year period. And that was, I just wanted to give you a real high level, give you some dialogue about the responsibilities, what we're doing as part of a financial statement audit, and then provide you at the end with a little bit of financial information within the general fund of the school district. That is the last slide. So at this point, I would turn it over to you to see if there are any questions for me.
Thank you so much. Questions from board members? Robin?
More of a comment. Thank you, Jackie, and your team for having another clean audit. We're very accustomed to awards for financial reporting, and this year looks like nothing different. So I know audits are a lot of work, and single audits are a big deal. So thank you for your work, and if you could pass that along. And welcome to Fargo Public Schools, Ide Bailey.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, well, thank you for being here. Yes, do you have another?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to just make a quick comment as I wrap up here. This was the first year that we did perform the audit, and in any given first year, it's an even longer process because we do not have that historical knowledge to draw upon. Plus, we have quality control procedures that we put in place. That's an extra layer, which is typically an extra week of time given the extra procedures that we put in. So I just wanted to say thank you to all those involved. They were very patient. They got us the information timely. And it's Jackie, but it's a whole team of people that help with the audit. And before I finished, I wanted to say thank you to all those involved for getting us that information and being very responsive.
Excellent. Jackie?
I'll keep it brief. Thank you. I just want to make sure that I'm not taking the credit for what happened here. It was my team that worked with the auditors, not myself so much. So really would like to thank Joy Rederath, who is our Director of Accounting, and Dustin Foster, who is the person who put together the largely bound ACFR that you have in front of you, along with the rest of the accounting team who also helped as well. They do great work and just would like to recognize them.
Okay. Well, I believe we already have a motion on the floor that has been seconded, so any further discussion? If not, I'll have you call the roll, please, Anne Marie.
Holden,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Berkland,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Day,
Yes.
Newman.
Yes, motion passes. So we'll move on to the land agreement with Sanford. This is in memo number 75. This actually comes to us from Tara Branner. I'm happy to read a summary, or would you like to present it? Okay, I'll turn it over to you then.
So the information you have in front of you is regarding the Sanford land purchase agreement. As you know, at the November 22nd, 2022 meeting, the board approved the purchase of land with A&T Co. This is the second agreement that the A&T company or the A&T Co. original agreement is contingent upon. So this is the land swap agreement where in sense we are buying property located, what we're describing as the south property, to exchange with property that will be known as the north property. If you have any questions, I'm happy to address them, but we are moving forward as long as this is approved.
Excellent. Robin?
I would like to make a motion to authorize the execution of the purchase agreement with Sanford North for the property, for the purchase of the south property for a purchase price equal to the product of $2.50 multiplied by the total square foot as determined by a certificates of survey.
Second.
Okay, motion by Robin, seconded by Greg. Any discussion? Okay, I feel like we've discussed this, so seeing none, I'll have you call the roll, please.
Nelson,
Yes.
Berkland,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Day,
Yes.
Holden,
Yes.
Newman.
Yes, motion passes. That will bring us to the bond resolution, which is memo number 76. This comes from Jackie Gap and Dr. Gandhi. Do you guys want to make any comments? Jackie?
So we intend to issue bonds to cover the purchase price of the land, now that you have approved the second piece with Sanford. So the total estimation of that is just under 18 million, which we will not know for sure until all of the platting is completed, which is why we are suggesting that that maximum level be at 18 million to bond. And what we need to do in this process is, this is the initial resolution that will begin the protest period for the bonds, which is a 60-day period. And upon completion of that time frame, we will come back to you then with the results of that and the remaining documents that will need to be filed in order to issue bonds to cover the purchase price.
Makes sense. So I would look for a motion to approve. Oh, does that with the formal? No, I think it's its own thing, correct? I think we have to approve this separately. Is that correct, Anne Marie? Yeah.
Okay, so I recommend that we approve the attached resolution and direct the business manager to publish the initial resolution for limited tax school building fund bonds in the legal newspaper of the Fargo School District.
I will second that.
Okay, motion by Katie, seconded by Robin. Any further discussion? All right, thank you. We'll call the roll.
Berkland,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Day,
Yes.
Holden,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Newman.
Yes, motion passes. And our final business item this evening is the topic of board compensation. This is memo number 77, actually coming from me. So per our board policy GP2E, the governing style organization of the Board of Education was amended in September of '09 to provide that board compensation will be reviewed annually during budget assumption discussions. So budget assumptions are being prepared by the business office currently, and it is therefore timely for us to consider our board compensation at this meeting. So a little history, board compensation was set at $750 per month in 2004. That was then raised to $1,000 per month in 2009. In 2016, the board approved and then ended up rescinding an increase to its compensation. In 2018 and 2020, the board reaffirmed the $1,000 per month compensation. And then in subsequent years, up until now, no action has been taken on the matter. So it's up to the board for us to determine ourselves whether to adjust this board compensation or not. No definite action needs to be taken. I just wanted to bring it up for discussion and review. Any discussion or questions from board members? Greg.
I guess to kick off discussion, so this is coming from the governance committee. Was there any discussion that took place regarding this that I missed out on?
Not necessarily. I think it's just time for annual review. So we thought we'd discuss it as the whole board.
I would note the whole board is not present.
Do we have to have a motion to just make any discussions, or can we just discuss without a motion?
We need a motion.
If there's someone that wants to make a recommendation to the board, you certainly would need a motion. But there's times where, I mean, this is the meeting you annually talk about this topic at. Governance did not discuss this prior to, but this is the annual meeting of that you have this conversation. Okay, I would recommend that no action be taken on the matter.
Okay, so that we continue at the current compensation rate.
Yeah.
Anyone have?
Was that a motion? Yes.
I would say if we don't take an action, it stays there.
Yeah.
If we do take an action to recommend, you can go either way. What you're saying is, sorry, I hope I'm not interrupting, to just keep it at the level that it is, so you can reaffirm it, or we can just not make a motion, which would probably be my recommendation to leave it. So I'm not seconding the motion.
Okay.
But I agree with you, but I'm not seconding your motion.
It looks like in the language of the memo that it was a reaffirmance, so I just wanted it. So I guess I would second the reaffirmance if that's what our prior practice was.
Okay, so motion on the floor by Katie to just reaffirm current practice, seconded by Melissa. Seth, did you have a question or comment to add?
No, I just had a suggestion about this, because I feel like every past few years we've kind of been confused about this, and especially as the previous election to just this election, we had three of us that were new, and I think maybe this is something governance could take a look at some point in time. This is just a suggestion, not any action. But I feel like we always get confused when we do this, because we're like, well, do we need to take action or do we not need to take action? And if we do we really need a motion? So I would suggest that maybe we take a look at our policy and like define something a little bit better when we discuss this every year. My suggestion can be completely thrown by the wayside, but it's just an observation I've had in previous years that we kind of get confused on what we're actually supposed to be doing with this every year. So.
No, thank you for that. I think sometimes there's just things that we want the full board to review and discuss, not just governance committee, and this would fall into that category, in my opinion, anyway. Yes, Robin.
Yeah, no, yeah, I totally agree.
The tough part, thank you, President Newman, this is always awkward, and I did promise a constituent, or actually a teacher, that if this came to discussion on the floor, I would restate this teacher's comments. And I'm just merely restating them. Good afternoon. My hope is that as a board, you will move to increase your monthly stipend at least to some degree. While this may run the risk of a vocal minority of the public being upset. I don't think that anyone can disagree with the fact that the demands of being a school board member have increased significantly, especially over the past 2 years. While none of you are on the board for the money, keeping the stipend commensurate with inflation and your growing duties simply makes sense. Lastly, the $1,000 stipend established in 2009 equates to nearly $1,400 in 2022. Bumping the stipend up to $1,500 would certainly not be out of line. I hope that you consider this as you discuss compensation on Tuesday. I will certainly be a vocal supporter of an increase if you do decide to move forward with one. I'm just restating a comment.
Thank you for sharing that. I believe we all received that correspondence. I did as well, and I appreciated that. Nemo?
I don't have anything much to say off of it, but I'm just thinking, do we have any other like research off on Grand Fork or other local school area? Because I wasn't sure if we were really gonna get into this, but I'm okay with whatever we have because we didn't come in here for the money. We came here to make a difference in our communities.
Katie?
I can share that I did look into that,
thank
and I
you.
believe we have the highest stipend in the state and in the region. So I did look into that a little bit.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The only thing I would add to the conversation is that if I were to consider raising this at some point in time, I think it would be based in, I believe that this position should be accessible to the people who live in our community. And we give a lot of time, and I know that there are a lot of people in this community who are probably very capable of being good board members, but maybe cannot give the time without some type of adequate compensation. So obviously I am voting for not raising it at this point in time, but when we revisit this, that is something I would want to consider is, would raising it make the position more accessible for other people in the community?
Yeah, thank you, Katie. I completely echo all of your comments. I think I took a look at the North Dakota Century Code, and we do have to have some type of stipend available to boards. It's just up to us to set that. And I also tried to find out, nationally and regionally, and it's really all over the board, pun intended. And I think, some boards receive like a 6-figure salary and some receive nothing. And I think the beauty of this is that we get to decide. I would like to maybe have every member here before we, make any changes. So I'm also reluctant to do anything except for stay where we are tonight.
Sorry, I agree too. I think we should have Jim's and Nikki here, and him on the Hogan's on the Mr. Hogan in there. We should all sit in here and try to discuss it together. I think that will make a best way to move forward. Other than that, it's a great discussion. Thank you.
I would say the people that show up, vote. If we wait for everybody to be present, we are here as a quorum of the board. That's how we operate. I appreciate that we want everybody involved. If we do discuss this further, I agree with Seth's comments, but I would also say we should compare not only ourselves to different school boards' salaries, but also other local elected officials, because we are the lowest. Yeah. And we don't take benefits. So to your point, having this accessible, because it cost me money when I was a young mom to serve on the school board. And so I'm at the point in life where I don't need more money, but some people might. And so keeping it accessible, I think, is a fair conversation. I will vote in favor of your motion to keep it here. But if the board wants to direct a committee to look into this further, I think that's maybe the next step. And I think the appropriate place to do that would be either the planning committee or the governance committee. But for the purposes of the motion on the floor tonight, I think we need to have some closure on this. But it seems like there's some dialogue that needs to be had.
All good points. Greg?
Yeah, I would echo quite a few of the sentiments made, particularly the accessibility of this position. I know everyone here probably knows this, but many people do not, especially candidate Greg, that the school board requires a pretty significant amount of work during the daytime. Now, I know that some board members are privileged to have incredibly flexible work schedules, and employers sometimes themselves. Some of us do not have that. My job does allow me to miss work, but like many people in Fargo, I don't get paid for hours I don't work. And so, because of that situation, I do keep pretty extensive documentation of the hours that I do have to miss in order to fulfill a lot of my daytime duties. And I did some back of the envelope math, and I'll just say that the school board is a really low paying part-time job, below minimum wage. And for me, I make it work. My wife's a teacher, so we know we're not rolling in it. But I really do think that there are significant concerns that I have with the accessibility of being a board member. It is not something that I think most people could pull off. I know that I barely pull it off. And I think there are a lot of talented people in our community who otherwise would be great school board members who could not do this. And so I'm not saying that we should get like a massive raise, but I don't think money should be an active deterrent to community members' ability to serve on this board. And that is a barrier. There are other barriers, but that is one that we have the power to change. And so to Robin's point, that I think if we want to have more discussion and potentially include others who are not here, we may want to kick this to planning or governance committee. And to make Anne Marie happy, I would say I would make a motion to lay the question on the table until a different committee could potentially discuss this. I would probably say governance, but maybe planning.
Well, just to echo on Greg and what everybody said, I think that most of you are doing well beside I am. If we talk about income-wise, it's
Greg just
Quick
put a
point of
motion
order.
on the
Just-
floor to lay this topic on the table, so we need to deal with that, not continuing on discussion.
So
or
that would need a second, correct?
okay. I will second it then.
Okay, seconded by Naeem. So then that ends all discussion, I believe. And we take a roll call vote on that. Is that correct?
Correct. There's no debate on this.
Okay, so I will ask you to please call the roll. We are voting to lay Katie's motion on the table.
Clarification, indefinitely or to a
Temporarily.
date certain, because there's a big difference.
Yeah, are you wanting to lay it on the table, which would mean we pick it up later, or do you want to postpone until a specific time?
I heard lay it on the table.
I guess it's a point of order. The laying it on the table would allow it to be picked up by, would it have to be picked up by the full board, or could that be picked up by a committee?
Depends on what you're trying to do. Are you wanting a committee? Like, do you want to refer this to a committee? Do you want to postpone this until a committee can review it?
Yes.
And
So
then
are you saying you want to postpone the motion until, do you want to name the committee?
Let's do planning, since it's finance related.
And Amal, are you seconding that?
I will second it. I will second that, please. Thank you for asking.
You can debate postponing it. So can I say something?
does this end all discussion? We can have debate?
thought
Oh,
you can
this
debate
is
on
different,
postponing.
because we didn't lay it on the table. Oh, goodness,
Oh,
okay. Yes,
We
Katie.
can talk about what Greg wants to do.
Yeah.
Okay. I would prefer that we just right now reaffirm what is written in here, that we reaffirm the $1,000 monthly compensation. It does look like we review this annually when the budget assumptions are being prepared. So this will come to those of us that are new 3 more times. And at least this particular board, at least 1 more time. So that's where I would stay with this.
And I would add that we can just ask the planning committee to take this up
Right.
as a simple.
But I think to close this right now, that's what I would
Agreed,
opt to.
because if we lay it on the table, it will force us to discuss it at another point, and the committee might not recommend any changes. And it makes for one more very awkward conversation.
Okay, so it wouldn't maybe ultimately come back to the whole board.
Can I say something? Yes. Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, I know that we're discussing this and it's $1,000. So what I'm trying to say to those people who's really so interested in running, especially those individuals who have lower income, live under lower income like I am. So what I'm trying to say to them is more like, don't worry about the money, worry about what you can really do in your communities and the impact that you can make. Because at the end of the day, there's always a way for you to make end meet, even though it's not the best that we want for our kids. But at the end of the day, at least you're telling your kid that if you want something to do in life, you can continue to do so. So that giving them the example to say, you know what, I might not have all of this on the table, but at the end of the day, I can still run and do what I needed to do. Because even when I ran for the school board, it's not because I had the money. It's not even, I was like literally $1,000, exactly as it is, but the fact that I had to do that and door knocks and doing all of that, that's what helped me. So if anybody really wanted to run and they really want to do it, nothing can stop them. They can do it. Yes, and I do not have another spouse, like like Craig said, to supplement my income. So, but I'm still here. So, thank you. Now y'all can continue.
Okay. So just procedurally, Emery, do we need to do a roll call vote for Greg's motion?
Yes, if you're ready to vote, I'm not sure if you are or not, but we would be voting on postponing the motion until the planning committee can review the topic.
Okay. Board members, do we feel ready to vote or further discussion?
Could I ask one question? So this is, the timing of this has to do with budget assumptions being prepared by the business office. What does that timeline look like for how long do you have to make your assumptions?
I'm going to look to Anne Marie. I would assume that if you chose to increase your pay, that would have to come back before the full board.
No, if they vote to increase their pay right now, they would increase their pay per whatever they would make the motion for. Typically, it would be the next school year, but again, they're in the driver's seat.
The budget process is you could You could choose to do it now. I mean, we would have to figure it out. So I guess that is up to you as to if you feel you need to increase your compensation. And if that would take place during the next school year, then that would be built into the budget.
Okay.
So budget assumptions aren't materially impacted if this gets decided now or in 4 weeks?
No, I think it would depend on when you decided to do it.
Okay, yeah.
Dr. Gandhi?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, this is a little bit of a trickier because it depends on when implementation is. And there's gonna be other components of building the budget. We haven't started maybe one of the biggest aspects of our budget, which is negotiations yet too. So everything has kind of a factor, but normally we get, property tax and some other pieces April or so, and we'd make assumptions for a budget for next fiscal year starting July 1. So it just depends on where it would fall in that planning piece.
All right, then I will be supporting my motion to have it referred to the planning committee since delaying the decision doesn't seem to matter too much, and it's more about the ultimate decision potentially being implemented matters.
Okay. Any other discussion from board members? This is a school board meeting. No? Okay, Anne Marie, I'll have you call the roll. Thank you.
I am calling the roll on postponing the motion until Planning Committee can review the topic. Okay, Christensen. No. Clark.
Yes.
Day.
Yes.
Holden.
Yes.
Nelson.
No.
Berkland. Yes. Newman.
Yes, motion passes. Thank you guys for that discussion. So we do not need to vote now on Katie's motion. That will go to planning. I think we'll move on to board reports. I'm probably going to start with Robin. We debated having you have your own standing report, but I know you have a lot to talk about for legislative updates. So first of all, thank you for all the work you do, and we look forward to being updated.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes, I'll try to keep it brief, and I'm just going to go down my calendar here so it might seem a bit disjointed. I, along with many of you, attended the NDSBA Brunson Learn about the legislative session. Also attended NDSBA's Governmental Affairs Committee meeting. I'm in the season of watching legislative committee hearings. They're very easy to watch, and you learn a lot about nuances in conversations when you watch those, so I encourage you to do that as well. Last night, I attended the Kennedy PTA meeting. Also this morning, attended the Chamber's meeting, their eggs and issues regarding mental and behavioral health crisis, which ties right into our legislative priorities. Let's see here, one legislative piece, and before I start naming bill numbers, those of you that were recently assigned to the C3 Tech Board, there's a bill out there to clarify that language and bring it back down from 3 board members from each district to 1 board member and 2 designees. So you might be short-lived. So, and that makes a lot of sense to me. So I can't imagine that we wouldn't support that. And then I will listen to some testimony from Amy Kopis from NDCEL today. And I learned that the state adopted the principal mentoring model, and that was based on Dr. Gandhi's dissertation. So the state is using a mentoring model based upon his study for his doctorate. So wanted to give you a shout out there. Thank you. That might have contributed to your being called Superintendent of the Year. So we're proud to have you work with the district. And then our next Governmental Affairs Committee meeting is a little bit different timing, January 24th at noon. We postponed a little bit until some of these bills dropped. Prior to the deadlines of all of these bills dropping, there were already 850 that were dropped before any of the deadlines that have been hit. The highest number of bills that we have monitored from a state level, not we have monitored from a state level, is 1,000. and none of the bill deadlines have met yet. So this is going to be an interesting session, and we will be very busy. So I will will be sending a lot of updates, and I've already had a lot of communication with our legislators. So thank you to the Governmental Affairs Committee for your work on this, and buckle up, guys. It's going to be a ride. Thank you.
You say that every year, but yes, thank you to the GAC committee so much for your work. Okay, we'll keep going in order. Nima?
Sorry. I have attended Fargo CAS Public Health Board meetings on the 16th. This was done through Virgil's. There were great presentations, and there was a presentation that I was supposed to print out and give it to you guys just for the reports. I didn't have a mean to do that. There were one that really really got my attention, one of the presentation, and that was based on mental health website and so many more that they can actually do. But it was too hard to really ask question because everybody was just on the mic, and I didn't like that. I'm sorry. And then on December 20th, I spent the special meeting that we had, and then the planning committee as well. So I continue the volunteer work that I usually do with the South High School. Then at the same time, I did attended the NDSBA Lunch and Learn. December 22nd, I did attend celebration of the season orchestra concerts at Davies High Schools. And then also yesterday, January 9, I was able to attend Fargo North High School's 8th grade elective night and activity fair, which was held 5:30 to 8:30, and then I'll get to leave at 8:30. I mean by 8:15. This was actually this allow our incoming student, because these are 8th grade, and their parent and guardian to learn more about our school, our program, to make an easy transition to middle school to high school smooth as possible. So I thought that was really great. I get to use my sign up, hey, follow me on the side with Deb. So it was fun. So I really had fun on that time. So I just continue everything that I normally do. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Melissa.
Thanks, Nemo. Yeah, so it's been a while since we've met, so I'll back up to December. I attended the Clara Barton Orchestra and Choir concert, which was lovely. Then the North Dakota Brunch and Learn about the upcoming legislative session. And I'm not going to name every negotiation and subcommittee negotiation meeting we've had because there have been a lot. And that's great. And I'm really excited for this upcoming negotiations meetings that we're going to be starting soon. My school board committee is the calendar committee, and we are just gearing up. So we're going to start meeting this month, which I'm very much looking forward to. And I think that is about it. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Seth, so I don't forget you.
Hello. I just have to report a little bit on, we've had, like Melissa said, we've had several negotiations meetings since we last met as a full board, and some subcommittee meetings to kind of divide the work up a little bit. We're going to have a kind of a longer negotiations committee work session, I'll call it, on Monday. And so hopefully soon we'll be putting some proposals together that we can bring to the full board. And when it looks like those proposals are getting put together, I'll let Anne Marie know to start putting possible executive sessions back on our agendas, and we'll just go from there. So that is all I have for this evening, and I apologize I couldn't be there in person, but long day.
Thank you, Seth, and thank you so much to the negotiations committee and all the time you guys are putting into that. Okay, Greg?
Absolutely.
Yeah, for my report, I just wrote down lots and lots of negotiations committee work. Not just the many hours we're together meeting, including Next Monday, I believe, I was sent a calendar invite for the workday is 5 hours. And then I have a subcommittee meeting the next day, also for negotiations. But lots and lots of preparation time. I think the rest of tonight and the next several nights will be spent at home reading contracts. So, yeah.
It's reminiscent of during the pandemic and our COVID committees. It was weekly at 6 a.m.
I will say it feels like very good, productive time. I think the negotiations committee is very excited about the work we're doing and the prospect of having a very productive negotiation cycle with the FEA this year.
Very happy to hear that. Katie.
Yeah, so since our last meeting, I also attended the planning committee meeting and our special meeting. And then on December 21st, I spent the day at South High shadowing one of the nutrition service staff members. So we arrived at 6 a.m. and we fed a whole bunch of high schoolers breakfast and lunch, and then we did a bunch of cleaning, and then I left at like 2:30, I think it was. So it was a great day. It was a lot of fun.
Very cool. Okay, thank you all. I have a very brief president's report. Governance has met. We all were at the special board meeting to consider the petition from FEA. I had to miss planning that day. Did attend the Davies Holiday Concert, which was lovely. And I too attended the NDSBA Brunch and Learn for legislative session preview and learned quite a lot. So with that, we'll move on to affirm our next regular meeting date, which is January 24th. And it is 7:01. We are adjourned.